Makes you wanna go. Makes you wanna go. Na 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 na. Makes you wanna go.
Hey, Mickey G, how are you today?
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. I'm glad to be up and breathing. So this is a good day.
I know anytime we wake up, it's a good day.
That's right. That's right. That is right.
All right. Let's get this show on the road. I want to thank you for coming this morning. And I want to thank everybody out there for stopping by Gab with Golden Bronze to see what we're gabbing about today. We know that you could have been anywhere else and you chose to spend a few minutes with us, so we do appreciate it very, very much. Gab with Golden Bronze is a sponsor of Golden Swan Cadre. And Golden Swan Cadre is a 501c3 organization that advocates against domestic violence towards women. Not only do we advocate against domestic violence towards women, we advocate for women's health issues, including women's maternity health, mental health, self-care, and mindfulness. So we would ask that you would go on our website, www.goldenswancadre.com, or our Facebook or Instagram page, and explore that to see what we're all about. Some of the things that we do is that when women leave the domestic violence centers, they start off with what they came there with. It's usually the clothes on their back and nothing more. So we try to help them with their needs list to get started on the single family journeys as the head of household. If that means adopting a room and furnishing it, we try to do that, decor it, groceries. We also work with other nonprofit entities, donating their needs list to them. Even though their pockets are much larger than ours, we come together and purchase whatever it is that they need, like underwear, hair care products, things like that, to those centers. We also collaborate with recreational centers throughout North Texas and supply their needs list. Oftentimes they'll ask us for Easter baskets, Halloween candy, Christmas gifts, or things like that. And so we try to fulfill that list as well. It takes money to do that, and we are partially self-funded, but we do solicit your help in doing that. All right. So today our topic is suicide in women afflicted by domestic violence. And people say, women in general or what? The answer is women who are afflicted by domestic violence, who experience abuse, or are at a much higher risk of suicide compared to those who are not abused at all. Domestic violence, it can actually cause intense emotional and psychological distress, leading to the woman having feelings of hopelessness, despair, and worthlessness, which is emotional abuse, which can increase the risk of suicide. And some of those key factors, as I just alluded to, the emotional and psychological trauma of being afflicted by domestic violence. That's a continuous emotional abuse, which can erode a woman's sense of self-worth, leading to a lot of depression, anxiety, and unfortunately, sometimes, not with everyone, but suicidal thoughts and ideation. So they may even have ideals of committing suicide, but not necessarily go through with that. But anytime someone mentions suicide to you, audience, if it's even just a mention, you should call 911, because we never know if that is going to be a reality. So anytime someone says, I'm just going to kill myself, take that serious. Even if they're not serious, take it serious and call 911 to seek medical attention for that person.
My goodness. Well, the second one is isolation. Abusers often isolate their victims from family and friends, limiting their access to emotional support and increasing feelings of loneliness and entrapment. When you feel completely alone in something, then you feel hopeless. And if you don't have any hope, and it doesn't look like things are going to get better, I see that people will do it based on being isolated from any support that they would have. And so isolation is part of domestic violence, which will lead to something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You just don't want to be around other people. You're embarrassed by your situation, or you just don't have words to share to explain how you even got yourself there, you know, in that situation. And people think that domestic violence is just physical harm, but it goes much deeper than that. But speaking of physical harm, physical abuse, along with the psychological effects, may also lead to long term health problems, mental problems, even the inability to compound the emotional burden that that person is going through. And sometimes they feel like the only way out is to make it a permanent unliving of themselves. Yes.
Right, right. Well, I can see how that would be an issue. One, because you're constantly in pain, you're constantly being beaten. And then there's medical bills, there's having to keep the secret of being beaten up, there's bruises, there's all kinds of things that weigh on a woman when she is being physically abused. Not only the pain, the fear, the bills, the secret coming out, all that is connected, I think.
And with the secret coming out, that can affect them emotionally because this is someone that they once were very much in love with, or probably still are. And a lot of times, it's hard to explain to people, well, this person said they love you. Why are they beating you? Like you may have the answer to that, which most women don't have the answer to why they're being abused. So they hide that, and the secret coming out could be that they're afraid. They are absolutely fearful of anybody knowing what is happening with them, because of what's going to happen to them when the secret is out, as you mentioned it. So a lot of times they hold that in out of pure fear, and because of that they experience hopelessness and powerlessness.
Mhm, mhm.
Many victims of domestic abuse do feel very powerless to escape, making it their situation harder to deal with, which can lead to feelings of despair, factors that increase their suicide risk. And we'll finish in just one moment. Thank you for returning to us. So, as I was saying, is that when you're in this situation, that you feel powerless to let anyone know that you're in a situation out of fear for your life, it becomes very hopeless for you. You see no way out. And sometimes people think that's the only way out is to unalive themselves, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah,
And of course, like you were saying, what can happen to them. So if this secret gets out, the abuser knows that she's told it, then she's in danger. So she has that additional burden
exactly.
of being afraid of being unalived by him or being
Right,
beaten some more. But she, at some point, people say, I'm not taking that one more beating. I just can't take it anymore.
right.
My body won't hold up under that. So that made my heart race just thinking about someone going through that. It just that
Yeah, we
oh my
know it
goodness, that
happened.
yeah,
We know of situations where people were unalived involuntarily. They didn't unalive themselves, as what the
right.
topic is about. But because they experienced all these emotional issues, they did not leave. And the result was that they were unalived by their abuser, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, hopelessness and powerlessness. Many
I
victims
just
of
did that.
domestic.
I just did that one.
Okay,
I
okay,
just,
well,
yeah.
okay, okay. Well, then we'll go to trauma bonding.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, trauma bonding. Victims may feel emotional connection to their abuser despite the harm, making it harder to leave or seek help, which can exacerbate feelings of entrapment. So they have this bond over what they're going through, and perhaps the abuser has gone through some things too. And then they bond over that thing, and they're in a spiral together. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know what? Maybe one day we'll touch on trauma bonding, Nikki, because a lot of people have no idea what that is, and we won't get into it. That's a whole nother topic. But you make a very, very valid point when you speak about it. Yeah. And so that could go on for another 30 minutes. I won't try to elaborate on it. You've done a great job with describing trauma bonding. Anyway, our whole point of bringing up suicide in women afflicted by domestic violence is my co-host was wanting to talk about just women uh, that experience suicide, which is astronomical. But the point that we're making here, as we said in the open statement, is even higher with women who are afflicted by domestic violence. And since that's our brand, we wanted to touch on it. And we want to also let you know that access to support networks, counseling, shelters, and legal protection is critical in preventing suicide amongst domestic abuse survivors. If someone in this situation comes to you, encourage them to seek help from a professional or domestic violence hotline. That can also be a vital step to saving their lives. And anytime, anyone, whether they're a domestic violence victim or survivor, if it's just any woman or man or child mentions that they want to commit suicide, please don't worry about hurting their feelings. Call 911 and let them know that they mentioned that to you. To save a life today. That's what it's all about.
This has stirred up a lot of emotions in me right now. I'm kind of fighting back tears, to be very honest with you, because it's
I
stirred
want
up
you to share your feelings. Please share your feelings if you
just
can.
yeah, just putting myself in the space of being afraid and being beaten and beaten down to the point where you don't have any hope. Who are you going to tell? Who's going to help you? Who do you trust? All of those things kind of came to my mind. And I remember when the last day of my victimization, I was afraid. I didn't know who to
Yes.
talk to. And I talked to very few people. And then the people I talked to betrayed me. So there's a trust thing sometimes. And you feel
Yes,
very
absolutely.
isolated. And if your abuser is isolating you, then you're very isolated, especially if you're in the same space with them, if you're still living with them. So just thinking of women going through all these things, this is why we're in Golden Swan Cadre, is to help women who have gone through this kind of
Victims.
trauma. It just,
Mhm.
so forgive me if I tear up during this whole thing, but it just touched me in a weird way.
I know how it touched you, and I never thought about that, but it was your idea to talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I just didn't know it was going to hit me like this. Yeah.
yes.
This-
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay.
We
That's
all
part of being human.
yes. So, I want to say to you, which you've already gotten out of that situation. So I guess I'm speaking to everyone else. So if someone comes to you and does confide in you that they are being victimized violently or emotionally or financially or spiritually or in the other categories of abuse, do not tell them you must leave right now unless their life is in danger. Help them develop a plan to escape, to act like everything is normal, to try to avoid confrontation, of course, because sometimes the least little thing will spark an abuser, and we don't really know how their minds are wired. But women need to have a plan to escape before they escape. So don't judge people by saying, well, why are you still there? I would never stay if that were me. I don't allow people to do that to me. We have heard all of that. We've heard it all. I would never let anybody do that to me. Women that are victims of domestic violence don't let anybody do that to them. They find themselves in situations that they can't escape from. So help them to develop a plan of escape before anything. That's the first step. Find out their need, develop a plan, help them execute the plan.
Yeah.
All righty.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
So my co-host, my phone died.
Okay. I think
But
it's time.
I
It's time to
turned it
run.
on. All right.
Yeah, it's time to
We'll
run.
take a break and we'll come. All right. Thank you for returning. We appreciate it. Mickey, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes. The other thing that I would say is sometimes these victims are not believed. And that
Right.
was also true in my case, that there were people who didn't believe this person would do these things to me. And not only in the courts, or even sometimes the courts are not helpful in some of those situations. I remember one particular instance, I was in the courtroom with that person and everyone left the room. There was not an attorney, not an advocate, not a person, just me and that person. And it was terrifying, so
Yes.
if you know the character of the person, is, you can believe them, you understand who they are. Now, some people make false accusations. I'm not talking about those people. That's a whole other category. But not being believed and you trying to protect yourself, that's a whole other can of worms. How isolating is that when some people believe you and some people don't. And then
Right.
they take the side of the abuser against you, or isolate themselves from you who used to be your support. Now they're over there with the abuser hanging out. So the
Exactly.
betrayal, the isolation, it's a lot.
And you know what? A lot of times the abuser is a totally different person outside of home, where he's like a chameleon. He changes to his environment on purpose so that if you make those allegations, you'll never be believed because he's such a great guy. He opens doors and closes, pushes chairs and steps aside, and he's got chivalry one-on-one down pat. At home, a different story. So you're right. Well, the statistics on the correlation between domestic violence and suicide among women in the United States are concerning, but they vary depending on specific studies. So here are some findings that we found that reflect this relationship. The risk of suicide among domestic violence victims. Women who experience domestic violence are significantly more likely to attempt or die by suicide compared to those who are not abused if they're not killed by the abuser. Studies suggest that victims of intimate partner violence are up to 4 to 5 times higher and more likely to be victims of suicide. So they're 4 to 5 times more likely to kill themselves than women who are not afflicted by domestic violence. So the number's staggering.
That is staggering. My goodness. With all that you're going through already, then you add the
Yes.
domestic violence component up on it and all the hopelessness. That is
Yep.
very
And the people not believing you, and you're reaching for help, and betrayal that you mentioned, the people not believing you, you're already hopeless, and now you can't get the emotional support that you need from other people to help you find your way out because you're already confused and lost and hurt, and sometimes not in a financial situation to even help yourself, and people turn their backs on you because they see this chameleon over here who is the nice guy to everybody else. How can he be so bad? Yeah. So what do? Commit suicide or unalive themselves. Yeah,
Yes, yes. My
unfortunately.
goodness. Okay, so the prevalence of suicide attempts, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, about 23.8% of women who experience domestic abuse will attempt suicide at some point in their lives. This figure is much higher than the rate for women who have not been abused, which kind of correlates with what you were saying.
Yeah, that's really sad. That's why it's important, like as we mentioned, if someone comes to you and tells you that they're a victim of domestic violence, um, part of developing a plan for them is to get them some professional psychological counseling. And the other part of the plan is the escape plan, which might take a week or two, you know, to help. If you're really, really trying to leave, it might take a week or two to initiate it. But the very first step, if you feel like committing suicide or if you meet anybody that talks about it, is to get them the professional help. And people, even if we have to pay for the first visit to get them that help, let's do it. If that's what we need to save a life, it's worth it. Yep. And so that intrapartner violence that we talked about, there was a study published in the JAMA Journal of Medical Accreditation, I believe is what it means, something like that, for psychiatry. In 2019, found that around 55% of female suicide victims had experienced intimate partner problems, such as domestic violence, making it a significant risk factor to their attempting suicide. So when they started doing the uh, statistical data trying to figure out why, they found out that a lot of the women, if they weren't successful, their attempt was because they were victims of domestic violence or being afflicted at the moment by domestic violence of some sort. Led them to want to try to kill themselves. Or I'm going to quit saying that, to unalive themselves. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. And I don't think those ghosts go away that quickly. That trauma
Right.
plays in the back of your head. Just because you're out of it doesn't mean that it doesn't replay in your head the thing that happened. And so later
Right.
on in their life,
Oh,
they still may
definitely.
do it. Yeah, they may still do it at some point in their lives because sometimes it's still talking to them and they're still, there's triggers that come up that make them think about that time. And
And speaking of triggers, let me just say that I am a survivor of domestic violence 15, 20 years down the line. That's how long it's been for me. I've gone through the therapy and survived, and now I'm a thriver. But certain things can happen that will trigger an emotion. Like the time we were on a podcast, I believe, and it was discussed that we weren't going to discuss certain things. And the podcast person discussed it, brought it up. Do you remember that? And that big frog got in my neck, my throat.
mhm, mhm.
And I will elaborate when we come right back.
Okay.
Thank you for returning. So, as I was saying, I'm like 14 years down the line, and I'm thinking, okay, I thought I was good. It's been 14 years ago. I think it was 13 at that time. But just having to talk about something that I had put away and move forward just brought it all right back. Now, I think I know I got that big frog in my throat, but I think my voice got a little shaky when I was trying to explain it. I think because I was blindsided, number one, and number two, just having to talk about it again. 14, 13 years later, that incident triggered something, as you mentioned, triggering. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It all comes rolling back sometimes. I'm not that far down the line from where I escaped mine, just a few years. So it's still fresh. But that's why we talk about it. That's why
yeah,
we advocate. That's why we're here
yeah.
to help
Yes,
women who
ma'am.
have been through and are going through what we've been through. So
Yes.
mhm, there's a passion there because we
Ye-
know firsthand. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, off the
Yes,
soapbox for a
ma'am.
minute. So the LBGTQ plus and minority women. The risk of suicide may be even higher among LBGTQ plus women and women of color who are victims of domestic violence due to additional layers of social stigma, discrimination, and lack of resources.
Yes, and I
Okay.
see all the time on the news about transgenders being attacked, not knowing any circumstances about why that would happen. It shouldn't. And I don't know if it's when they're in intimate relationships and maybe haven't disclosed, but regardless, it should never happen to anybody. And I do see a lot more lately when it was brought to my attention that those numbers are very high in the LGBTQ plus community, which was surprising to me actually. So
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, you want to elaborate on that or not?
Just a little bit. I think that the LGBTQ plus community is not, let's say, a majority community. And so a lot of people don't understand those relationships. And so there's some biases, I would imagine, that would go against that and saying, well, you shouldn't have been with someone like that. You shouldn't have been, victim blaming. And then even the women of color, that's a whole other level of discrimination in many other areas. But to be
Yes.
isolated because of those kinds of things is very disheartening for those women who are going through those kinds of things. That's really
Yes.
all I said about
I, I would like to at some point dive in a little deeper as to
that. Yeah.
why the numbers are higher with women of color. And we're not just talking about African American, we're talking about Indians from Asia and third world countries and Hispanics. The
Right.
numbers are high in Hispanic, any color, ethnicity, whether it's Asian, African American, African, whatever. I would like to delve into that at some point to try to figure out, and we might do that too.
Okay.
Uh, why are the numbers higher? For domestic violence in those ethnicities. So that's a good one that we'll just take that on some other time.
Okay.
But the correlation between domestic violence and homicide, suicide, which we talked about, if they don't, oftentimes, and not in every situation, because we're sitting here today, but oftentimes, as some of the women in my organization have come close to homicide, being a victim. Um, but in domestic violence related homicides, a portion of perpetrators die by suicide after they have killed their partner. And we talked about that yesterday, off air, a situation where it was attempted by somebody that I know who
Right.
uh, was trying to kill his wife and children and himself, but he killed himself and his children. So, but that's a warped mind to begin with. This highlights the lethal nature of domestic violence in some cases and end up in both homicide and suicide. It ends up in both. These statistics show the profound psychological toll of domestic violence and highlight the importance of intervention, as we talked about today. If someone comes to you and mentions the slightest little bit that they might be a victim afflicted by domestic violence, it is our responsibility to try to help that person develop a plan. So that might take us asking a few probing questions without being intrusive, just probing. It takes emotional intelligence to navigate through situations like this, but it also takes important intervention, getting them access to medical health services, as I mentioned earlier, and domestic violence support to reduce the risk of suicide. That means developing a plan, even if it means getting them to a domestic violence center where they're in a safe space. They will get the counseling that they need. They will have the intervention, and they will help them develop a plan. All right. Oftentimes, when they need those domestic violence centers, they're referred to go to Swan Cadre, and we will help them however we can within our means to live their single family head of household journeys. At that point, for 12 months, we rotate 4 clients, 12 months, and we try to mentor them, pray with them, peer to peer with them, support them in any way that we can within our means for at least a year. And it usually, if a person can stay away from their victim for 12 months, they're pretty much going to stay away. Oftentimes they go back within months, 3 months, 6 months, because the abuser will convince them he's changed, he'll never do it again, he loves them from the bottom of his heart. And because they love him, they want to believe him, they go back. But if they stay on their own for at least a year with support from you and from people like us, they're pretty much going to be safe from that point forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay. That was a pretty heavy one right there. Let's say.
Heavy, but informative and very necessary.
Very.
So we're going to do something really fun in just a few minutes. We'll be right back. All right. Thank you for returning. So we're going to end this with something fun. We always like to do something uplifting and fun after we have those real serious conversations. But we are creative minds that address serious topics. So our fun thing is we're going to list some things that's on our bucket list. And I like to call it my to-do list, because to me, a bucket list is like the final list. But I guess in actuality, that's what it's supposed to mean. But that's just my thing. So one of the things on my to-do list is to travel as many countries as I can. I don't know if I would be able to make the whole world, but I would like to go to South Africa. I would like to go to Europe. You know, I want to go to Paris, France, and Italy. And I like to go to countries that most people don't think about, like Fiji, Grenada, however you want to say it, Turks and Caicos, places where people kind of look like me. I like to see if they act like me, you know, if we have commonalities. And I've never wanted to go to cold places like Australia. That's too far under for me. You know, but those are some of the few places. That's just a few places. So I will mention one and then let my co-host mention whatever is on her to-do list, and we'll just have a little fun with it. And if we want to elaborate on each other's fun list, we'll do that too. So if you have anything to say about what some of the things that places I want to go, now's the time to do it.
Well, we're very similar in that I have travel also. And one of the places I wanted to travel to was the continent of Africa. I want to go to Ghana and see the point where slaves were taken from the motherland. I want to see that. I'd like to go to South Africa because I heard it's beautiful there. Kenya because of the safaris. Costa Rica because I heard that it's a nice place to go and it's friendly to people of color. And then I've seen Switzerland on YouTube where they have the 4K flyover. It's so pretty. I might be interested to go to Switzerland That's a little bit off the
Yeah,
beaten
yeah,
path. People don't normally
yeah,
say, I want to go to Switzerland, but it's beautiful from what I saw.
yeah. Costa Rica is one of mine. South Africa, I did mention that. Um, Ethiopia, because I have some ancestry there. Um, I don't know. Costa Rica was one that you and I have talked about. Maybe even I might move there someday. And Spain. I forgot to mention I want to go there.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me what's on your to-do list.
Okay, well, that was one of them. But one thing I would like to do is to get my body in optimal health and fitness. That's on my bucket list. To get myself
Yeah.
not driving around the parking lot of the gym, but going in the gym to work out. And I'm starting to eat better too. So those things, that's something that's on my list to do, to get myself in tip-top shape.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why you're my co-host because we have commonalities. I do go to the gym. I do a little more than driving around. That was really funny. We know you only did that because you couldn't find a parking spot.
Right.
But
Right.
I want to, uh, I have a person that I admire, a muse named Ernestine Shepherd. And this lady is 88 years old and has a body of a 33-year-old. She is a weightlifter, though, by profession. I think she has retired. And she teaches, what do you call it? She's a fitness trainer in a gym. But I would love to get my body like her body. And the fact that she's 88 years old with a body like that lets me know that it's never too late. It's never too late.
That's right.
So
She
that's
was my
my
she was
thing is
my
to become
inspiration.
tough.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was my inspiration on my
Yes.
first weight loss journey. I said, if she can do it, I can do it. And I did. I
That's
dropped 50
yes,
pounds.
ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Well, let's see here. Another thing I would have on my list, I would like to have a healthy, loving marriage until death did we part by God's decision, not a person's decision. But I would like to
Mhm.
have that in my life. So that's something on my list to do.
That is very nice. Me too, Mickey. That wasn't on my list, but I agree with you. That would be something very nice to have. Um, I enjoy cooking. And we mentioned that once before. So I would like to have my own cooking show. Not mine on YouTube, but a real one on TV. So
Yeah.
on my list to have a cooking show on real TV, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
Well,
fun to.
yeah, you got a good start on your YouTube channel. So that could grow into a television show, you know.
Yeah,
Um, see, and I can't wait to come eat some of your cooking again. You are a good cook. Mm-hmm.
thank you. Thank you. I was
You're
like, haven't you?
welcome.
I said, yes, you have, haven't you?
I've made your cooking before. Okay. So I have really two, but I'll choose one because of time. I want to secure my family for the future, my generations going forward with a structure, a template that they can continue on from the things that I've left for them. That's one of the things that I want to do on my bucket list.
Okay. Well, my last one, for the sake of time, is I would love to be able to um, furnish ladies whole apartments when they start their single family journeys. Right now, I have to say one room. I would love to be able to say, we will furnish you a two-bedroom apartment. I have to put some limits on it because sometimes people will just go kind of crazy. And I am not talking about designer furniture. I'm talking about furniture that we would buy, for ourselves.
Right.
We're not millionaires, but they usually buy, higher quality furniture. But it would be good quality furniture, and I would love to be able to just make people happy by saying we will furnish your first apartment for you, so you don't have to worry about that. That is my biggest number one. I went backwards, but that's the first thing that I would like to be able to do, and I feel like that mission would be accomplished for the whole purpose of this Golden Swan contract.
Yes. Well, may I say something very quickly on that? Um, Along the same lines, I saw an Oprah Winfrey show years ago, and it inspired me to pay for someone's groceries. If you're in line, pay for someone's groceries in front of you and say, "I've got that." I want to be able to do that for people to just randomly pay a bill or pay for their groceries or whatever,
Mhm.
buy them Christmas presents for their children, just be able to give to someone like that, just randomly, just because.
Yes.
So that would be like my last one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was the end of our to-do list, and hopefully we'll be able to do those things in life at some point or another. But I want to say thank you for stopping by to listen to Gab with Golden Bronze. We do appreciate it. And we know that you could have done anything and watched anything, but we appreciate it that you decided to stop here and see what we're gabbing about today. And I will ask my co-host to wrap us up.
All right. Well, you may see Gab with Golden Bronze TV show on the DuPont TV network, brought to you by Village Global Network TV. We're on Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m., noon Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Be sure to tune in, and we look forward to seeing you there. Tell your friends, tell other people to watch this show, and we appreciate it. So let's do some housekeeping things as far as Golden Swan Cadre, which Gab with Golden Bronze is a sponsor. So these are ways that you can donate. Chime, use $ Golden Swan Cadre. The G, the S, and the C are all uppercase. So be sure to do that so you can find us properly. PayPal, enter thegoldenswancadre@gmail.com. Our website, www.goldenswancadre.com. And on social media, on Instagram, go to the charity section and find the official _ Golden Swan Cadre. And on Facebook, the same thing. Go to the charity section and find Golden Swan Cadre. Please join us in making a positive impact for women today, and we appreciate every donation in advance.
Yes, we do. And we appreciate you for stopping by to listen to Gab with Golden Bronze, and welcome you to come back tomorrow. See what we're gabbing about.
Yes.
Bye-bye.